Boys Bible Study, the only podcast that will come again to judge the living and the dead. That's right, that's us. I'm Ash. As always, I'm here with my co-hosts,
Scott
and Julian.
Today, our film is a psychedelic 2013 feature film called Miracle Man. And to review it with us, very special guest, we have Lucian Greaves, the co-founder of the Satanic Temple. Lucian, welcome.
Great to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. Have you watched much Christian media before?
Yeah, I have. I love it.
Yeah.
We do movie nights on our own streaming platform for the Satanic Temple, TST TV, on Wednesdays. I host it. We do a real-time chat, and every so often I throw in some of the Christian cinema. And I mean, I don't know how anybody enjoys it taking it seriously, but it's really entertaining when you don't. And, you know, sometimes we just get to drinking, get to smoking, get to watching, and then somebody inevitably asks, who watches this shit? And then somebody inevitably says, well, apparently we do.
You're right. Right.
Yeah. Outside of the, viewing it ironically, in order to enjoy a lot of these films, you would have to have never seen another movie or television show ever before.
I have to recommend Christian Mingle. I mean, my crowd almost revolted when I played it a second time. But I thought that one was it had a lot to say about the bizarre mindset of the superstitious.
So good. We haven't formally done that one for the show, but we want to. I absolutely love that one. I'm glad you have a background with Christian cinema. Before we get into it, I did want to ask, for anyone listening to Boys Bible Study who may not be familiar with your work, would you mind briefly introducing yourself and telling a little bit about the Satanic Temple and what you work on?
Right. Well, I'm the co-founder of and spokesperson for the Satanic Temple. We're a worldwide non-theistic religious organization recognized as a church by the IRS and tax exempt. And aside from building that kind of community for a non-theistic religion that makes it a religion, people mostly know us for our battles to preserve pluralism and secularism in the United States. And we primarily do that by insisting upon equal access when public forums are opened up to religious expression, because nobody ever seems to expect or want the Satanists, but they should expect that if they're going to open up public grounds to religious expression. So it always causes a lot of controversy and causes people to think differently about the expansion of religious liberty, realizing that perhaps it cuts two ways.
Yes, and I know, even if someone listening might not be familiar with you by name, I'm sure almost everyone has seen either you or affiliates of the Satanic Temple. Various political actions you've performed, in the last decade have involved battles over 10 Commandment statues in courthouses, prayers and invocations before city council meetings, things of that nature.
That's a weird thing about the COVID lockdown, too. I've done it extremely intensely, and I've been, in for the year, this past year. And I feel like I've really lost concept of just how much people know about any of this.
Right.
We've been gaining momentum ever since we started, and we've been growing, very rapidly since we were founded in 2013. And then the Hail Satan film, a documentary about us, came out a couple years ago. And I was getting recognized quite a bit, but now I haven't been out or anything, and I just have no idea where I'm at.
Right. But thinking back to some of the work you've done in the past and also stuff we've covered on the show, we here at Boys Bible Study very recently covered the cult favorite Satanic Panic documentary, Hell's Bells. Are you familiar with this? Have you seen this film?
No, I actually haven't seen that.
It was, what year was that, Scott? Was it 80?
I want to say 89. I'd have to
89.
look it up real quick.
It's this just to briefly summarize it for you. It's this really like meticulously researched 3-hour long documentary where a Christian goes through like all of these famous like rock and pop bands and even some like much lesser known ones and just like analyzes all these works for, satanic imagery and satanic lyrics and talks about how much of a blow this is to culture. I bring that up to say something that we find often in this in the film that we review, and I wanted to ask you about is like it seems like there's not really a lot of confidence in like the power of God by Christians to sort of hold back the satanic forces, like if you can listen to a song and Satan can take over your body, or in the case of like you doing public appearances and, reporters bringing holy water along to defend themselves from this sort of like ambient influence that you might have. I don't know. What do you make of that? What do you make of the extreme fear of satanic influence by Christians?
Yeah, that asymmetrical power, though, is something I noticed even as a kid when I was aware of the Satanic Panic, because there was this idea that you could get these powers from Satanism or from Satan, selling your soul or whatever, that you would be able to levitate or, cover up crimes of the worst order, get rich, be a rock star, and all that kind of thing. You go to Sunday school, and what do you get? You sing songs, get a fucking cookie. Like what was that about? I can only speculate the reason there. They really wanted to put the fear of Satan into people, so they had to empower Satan quite a bit. But they also made the idea really appealing.
When you were growing up, Lucian, were you involved in religion in any way? Like, were your parents or family Christian at all?
They were off and on. And my dad's side of the family was Catholic and my mom's was Protestant. And every so often they get like a wild hair up their ass and decide that they need to take the kids to church. But this was kind of in limited bursts. But it did give me the opportunity to really despise both sects for different reasons. And, I was growing up when the Satanic Panic was going full steam as well. And that was very influential to me. And then ultimately, I think, just really growing skeptical of the claims of the religions that I was exposed to. And at the same time, realizing that the claims surrounding the Satanic Panic were bullshit. I feel like those kind of converged, in a way that kind of made me what I am today.
Yeah. And one thing that I just watched the Hail Satan documentary and one thing that gets often discussed in there is the sort of like cultural supremacy that Christianity has on the United States, which I think is undeniable, especially given, political totems and political aesthetics, such as, 10 Commandments, courtroom statues, and things of that nature. But, we really study Christian film. And I guess I just wonder, it seems like Christians have so much political cultural supremacy. Why don't they have artistic cultural supremacy? Why?
And why do they feel so persecuted? You notice that in the films too. They feel like the whole world is against them and that they have no say in anything at all. While at the same time, simultaneously, they're really trying to overthrow the entire world and install a theocracy. And I guess anything less than that, they feel just falls so short of their vision that they must feel that they've been subdued by culture in general. But the tears they cry in the films that they show are pretty extreme, and they would be laughable. Well, they're still laughable, but also a grim reality to all this, and the fact that they do have so much political power.
Yeah. Well, also, why can't they make good or normal films? I don't know what I'm trying to ask here. It's
I've wondered that too. I've wondered that mostly about the music. I listen to Christian music and I'm like, man, why the fuck is this so stale and meaningless? And it seems so devoid of any actual emotive quality. And I really don't know, but it might have something to do with the copying of the theme over and over again to the point that it's totally meaningless even to them. They're trying to express something that isn't even there for them anymore. The theater of it has become everything, and,
Right.
and they don't even realize it's lacking that, devoid of any risk, any mistakes, anything that would make it interesting. And that's how I feel about the films, the paintings, the music. It's just empty.
Well, I don't know how you could feel that way after watching Miracle Man. 'Cause this was the only way this could have come into being is through divine intervention.
It's a good point, Julian. And Lucian, while you were busy co-founding the Satanic Temple, somebody else was finishing Miracle Man the same year, 2013. Very exciting.
That's right.
Well, we'll see who wins.
Yeah.
Time will tell. I don't know how history is going to treat this film.
Right. We should definitely talk about Miracle Man. I definitely had one more sort of philosophical question. Maybe Scott or Julian would want to interject something after, but I wanted to ask about the concept of like irony and how it works in with your activism, because we here at Boys Bible Study, we have definitely this sort of like genuine appreciation for this genre. Otherwise, we wouldn't spend so much of our lives watching and analyzing it. But our critique definitely comes from this like this ironic place. It's like there's a sincere love, but also a sincere critique of the message, and this almost like Stockholm syndrome like devotion to the message and the imagery along the way. I noticed that, a lot of Satanic Temple actions and stunts and statements like that sort of deploy irony, specifically with the way that, even that you invoke Satan and Satanism too. There's absolutely ironic qualities. Can you speak about that a little bit? How does that influence your political actions?
That's funny. I just did a interview with the BBC Radio 4 where they were talking to me about trolling and authenticity and that kind of thing. And it really touched exactly on this topic. And I was so glad they called me to talk about this, because it was something different. And I was reflecting, realizing that I first came into media consciousness for putting my nuts on a grave. And now I was being called upon as a public intellectual. And I love that. But what was your question?
Oh, well, just even the way that you invoke Satan is tongue in cheek. Like I can tell there's a genuine appreciation there for the mythology of Satan. But there's also,
Oh,
stunts.
no, the Satan thing is totally unironic, and it's something that genuinely is important to people who identify with Satanism.
Yes.
The Satan part is non-negotiable, and it's indicative of all those things that we feel we embrace. But the use of irony and that kind of thing, and that's why I was bringing up the BBC thing, because that was exactly the topic. But the irony part, like we started out fully willing to use kind of satirical prankster-like tactics. And you see that with our first protest, where we were endorsing Rick Scott, or Rick Scott's move to put in a prayer in school bill.
Right.
And, the idea was that, we were playing the unwitting beneficiaries of this bill that was supposed to, of course, benefit evangelical Christians. And we were acting like, it was totally intended to benefit us, and that we were, applauding Rick Scott for pushing it through. We would never do something like that now, because we really don't want people to misunderstand who we're standing for, what our values are, that kind of thing. And we pledged really early, right after the Rick Scott thing, that we'd never do something like that again, and that we wanted to present ourselves in a 100% authentic and accurate fashion. And we've done that ever since. And that might sound outrageous to some people now because, you still see some things we do and they seem hilarious because nobody else is doing it. And, it's very apparent how shocking it'll be to some people. But I think the real horrifying part of our Satanism is to a lot of people is how genuine it actually is.
That's beautiful. I love that. At the end of the day, the most shocking thing is sincerity. In an irony poisoned world, in an irony poisoned era we live in, the most shocking thing you can do is be sincere.
Well, look at how many pranks seem to have backfired in recent times.
Right.
I mean, you can't tell me that the revival of the flat earth theory didn't start with somebody being a smartass online.
Yeah.
Right.
And I feel that way with some of the QAnon shit too, or some of the other conspiracy theories that have gained traction. Somewhere, somebody started that, and it could be a bad foreign actors or whatever, but sometimes I think it's just somebody being a smartass and saying, oh, I think I can get this one to catch on, and they do.
Yeah, what was JFK Jr. thinking when he started posting all that stuff online as a joke?
Keep that on a private account, dude.
Gag. Yeah.
I appreciate the sincere aspect, especially post-Trump. It seems like irony's in a weird place right now, for sure.
Yep.
I love that the sincerity angle from your organization is also just like amplifies the terror in evangelicals, because like if you come at it from an ironic angle, it sort of feeds into their belief that like, oh, nobody could sincerely believe in and worship Satan.
Well, the real sticking point for them is that we're non-theistic. We don't claim to believe in a literal Satan.
Yeah. I guess that's even funnier. That like you not believing in anything is even scarier and incomprehensible to them than,
but
than
that's
believing
always
in something.
That's always their first argument against our authenticity. That we admit that we don't even believe in a literal Satan. And my thinking is, if we were playing a game here, if we were pulling a prank, wouldn't we just say we do believe in a literal Satan? Like, that would be the easiest way to go about this whole thing.
Right.
Rather than having to debate with people about the meaning of religion and whether or not something that doesn't venerate a literal deity or a supernatural power, it can be considered a religion. But it's just amazing to me that we're completely upfront with exactly what we believe and how we believe it and what this all means to us. And we are considered to be inauthentic or otherwise pulling bullshit.
Yeah, well, but the part of the thing is, though, something that we've noticed from watching so many of these movies, and you might have as well, is that not too irregularly, an atheist character will pop up, and the atheist character, I have yet to see an atheist character in a Christian movie that doesn't actually believe in God. The case is always that he really does believe in God. He just hates God for taking away, name a family member.
That showed up in the first God's Not Dead movie.
Oh, yeah, big time there.
Yeah, that whole idea.
But I wonder, too, if that's the case with the Satanic Temple, where Christians are like, they believe in Satan, so obviously they know all the same stuff is true that I know is true, and they're choosing to worship the villain here. And they really do believe in God. I'm sure, like, more people than not who are against what y'all are doing know that you do believe in God.
Well, sometimes I actually look at the social media comments, or at least I have through the years. I really try to avoid it now. But there's common things that are said again and again, so you get to gauge where people's real ignorances lie when it comes to this. But something I've seen pop up again and again are people saying that we claim we don't believe in God, but how stupid are we because we believe in Satan?
Right.
So I don't know how I guess that's how they translate non-theistic, like just not a belief in their own God, but perhaps a belief in another. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well, it's confusing with how many horror movies there are too, where they'll have demons or the devil or something, but it's set up in a way that suggests that the Bible has to be true in at least some capacity.
Sure, like The Exorcist. But speaking of The Exorcist, you know, there was a Turkish version of The Exorcist, and in Turkey, their copyright laws are like non-existent, so they'll just recreate some American films. And at one point, somebody over in Turkey made Turkish version of The Exorcist, and it was on YouTube. So I just grabbed it, and then I subtitled it. But I don't speak Turkish. But my subtitles were really good for it, just the same. Told a whole different story. And I had The Exorcist, when he's reading the passages, reading some of the most outrageous passages in the Bible, like talking about jerking off donkeys and, you know, some bizarre passage about peeing against the wall. And, of course, the one where the guy has a group of guys who came to rape a guy, rape his concubine instead,
right.
chop her into several pieces. Anyways, yeah, but I just imagine telling these kinds of sacred stories and making demons tremble with them.
Speaking of films in which the battle between Jesus and Satan has very real, very tangible consequences, Lucian watched with us tonight the 2013 film Miracle Man. This film was directed by Ted Jordan. He definitely wrote it as well.
It's a movie in English, but you could also probably upload your own subtitles.
Yeah.
It was pretty baffling even on its own. Despite it being a pretty heavy-handed metaphor, as we dig into the discussion, I'm sure listeners will understand why we were so confused.
That's true. How could we subtitle in anything better than when Satan appeared and said, "What happened in Vegas?"
Okay, so I will just briefly say that, you know, Miracle Man is essentially a modern day retelling of Jesus's temptation in the desert as depicted in the Matthew chapter 4 verses 1 through 11, but it has a very modern twist. We have a lead character played by Seth Gandred. This character's name is JC. I wonder if you can spot the symbolism there. And he encounters the devil many times in this. Lucian, I really wanted your opinion. What did you think of the depiction of Satan in this movie?
What really stood out for me were his very simplistic lines. Like I said, what were you doing in Vegas? And and they were like 3-word sentences he would bark out.
He'd be like, "Get the job done."
Yeah.
I've had enough of bowing down to the great mighty one, serving, and more serving. Remember, he's human and has a free will. If he falls, we win for all of eternity. We have to win this game, do you hear?
Yeah, you'd think after an eternity to develop his mind and his vocabulary, he'd be a little more poetic.
Right. Yeah, so in this film, JC, what is he? A construction worker? He builds houses.
Owns the business, JC Construction.
He builds upper middle class suburbs outside of Phoenix, Arizona, which, Jesus, well known for his love of the upper middle class.
And Satan gave him a big contract just to keep him off his ass.
Yeah, keep him extra busy.
Right. There was that entire plot line where Satan sends JC Construction Company like a 2-year long contract doing something. And JC turns it down. He says, you know, the only work I want is from my father.
Not everything that comes our way is always right for us. We only want stuff that comes from the Father, and this is not. Thus, you have to trust me. This is the setup.
How?
I told you before that my objective here isn't to build houses or build corporations. It's to build lives. Lives that have been torn apart, lives that are broken. We don't need this contract. And the enemy wants to derail my mission. They want to make me so busy that I don't have any time for people.
You know, but why would the devil send him work like this? Like, what do you think was his end game?
I think to keep him from saving souls.
Yeah, but what's the deeper message here? That it's I thought the prohibition was against idle hands.
Right. I do know that at one point JC says something to the effect of like, you know, if I spend too much time working, then I won't have enough time for people. But you're right, Lucian, which is that, I mean, you know, hard work is considered a virtue. I mean, I guess a balance is important, but this movie just seemed to have some like, it was a fine line between like work and material possessions are good. Even in the fact that like a lot of the heaven and hell themes in this movie were done from the like language of running a business. But on the other hand, like business can't be too much or else you'll lose sight of what's really important.
JC also said in the movie, another day, another dollar.
Yeah.
So, how are things going at work with the guys? Are you keeping them busy?
Another day, another dollar.
Straight out of the Bible.
Yep.
Now, I know I'm going way too deep here, and we haven't even gotten there yet, but the part where Satan grabs onto Jesus and they teleports him to the top of a building in Vegas, and then he starts trying to beat his ass eventually, and Satan chooses to be an 80-year-old man about, you know, trying meekly to choke Jesus out. And I was thinking, why wouldn't you have just teleported his ass into a furnace or something?
Yeah, the movie had a pretty like confusing idea of what Satan's power can be. I will say on a very like dead on metaphor here, that was definitely supposed to be the part from the temptation in the desert where the devil takes Jesus to a high place. He says, Matthew 4, it says, the devil took him to a very high mountain and showed him all of the kingdoms of the world and their splendor. So, you know, this was Las Vegas, I guess. In this film, Las Vegas was the symbol of like the America's splendor.
We were listening to some of the dialogue and thinking that this must have been written by an old man. What were some of the lines? Listening to headphones.
Well, it must be nice to meet you. What'd you say? I said that it must be nice to meet you. You don't have college, you don't have exams, you got a nice job, you're gonna walk around listening to headphones all day.
He's listening to headphones. The demon kept calling Jesus Buster.
Right.
And he wore like a bow tie and like a pork pie hat. And he talked about how like Vegas is the pinnacle of fame and fortune in the year 2013.
Right.
Would you look at this city? Las Vegas. The epitome of fame and fortune.
Yeah, it seemed very like of a past generation. There were also many references to Jesus and his prayer meetings that he's doing in a local club in downtown Phoenix. At one point, a police officer says like something to the effect of like, we were done dealing with these long hair mystic types or whatever. Like he sort of equates Jesus to like the slouching towards Bethlehem, like 60s, like dark side of the hippie movement, which, you know, I need not remind at the time of the making of this movie was like 50 years ago. So, you know, seemed a little dated.
But, you know, this whole idea of modernizing the story of Jesus, so we see how important it was. It just really kind of backfires when you see him in the wedding and he's going to turn the water into wine. Right. And you're thinking like, and they make a big moment of it, you know, it seems like he's expending energy or whatever. And you're thinking, why the fuck is this important? Of all the things you could do.
Yeah.
Right.
Apparently he can heal people of cancer or whatever, but he's in there fucking around making sure everybody can get drunk.
Right.
Yeah, that was like his coming out party too, where it was
Right.
like his mom turned to him and said, like, now's your time to reveal your true powers.
It's time.
What do you mean?
You know, I knew there was something special about this trip. Not just me coming to see you, but I knew your time was coming. And I think it's time to start right.
What?
See those water jugs over there?
Yes.
This movie has a very confused idea of Satan and his dark powers, but it has an even more confused idea of what Jesus symbolizes and what his magical powers are also, and what the purpose of those powers are. Because the first big one you see is he has the power to freeze people in combat.
Yeah, I don't know what the biblical parallel is there.
Yeah. And then, but the first one that you hear you see in the Bible that shows up in this movie is the turning water into the wine, which is used to get his weird gamer nephew's wedding party drunk.
But in this case, I don't remember what happens in the Bible, but in this case, they just couldn't find the key to the closet that stuff was in.
Yeah, the janitor lost the keys.
Yeah, blaming the
And,
janitor.
like, his car was dead or something. The car battery was dead.
Yeah, it was very strange, and honestly, something to what you were saying a bit earlier, Lucian, about how like a lot of Christian media is painting with such a limited palette because they feel like the only stories they're allowed to tell are these like ones that have been done over and over again. I think that really showed in the water into wine scene in this film, because it was like, yeah, like in the context of the Bible as literature, like this happens in this very like, organized way. And I'm sure you could read it as some sort of, allegory or thing like that. But in this film, it's really just like, oh, I'm at a wedding now. Like, we need wine. I guess I'm gonna change water into wine. It was like he was painting with such a limited palette. He tried hard to make this moment special using special effects, but like actually the modern retelling of it like really cheapened it and removed it from any context and made it like very strange in comparison to the other work that the Jesus figure in this movie was doing.
Well, remember the guy sitting with him getting coffee at the airport, and I was saying, because they were obviously posturing him as a sinister guy who was also Jesus's friend, I was saying, this must be Judas. Was that ever revealed?
Right.
Did we ever figure that one out?
No.
So they must have meant to do a sequel.
Yeah, so this movie, I was reading about it. It was featured in a Cracked.com article from several years ago of like the top 5 craziest Christian movies. And it turns out that this was originally intended to be a television series.
Oh.
And what we just watched was 3 episodes that were combined into one movie and then uploaded to YouTube for free in an official capacity. So he just eventually gave up on trying to get this thing off the ground and gave it to the masses for free.
This is the second one of these we've done in a few weeks.
Yeah, it's
true.
What are the odds?
We've hit a nice streak. Seems to be a recurring theme in independent Christian production of trying to make a completely nonsensical, very loosely tied to biblical allegory television series becoming a movie.
I'm glad I learned this though, because it explains the pacing a bit more now, because I did have the feeling that the movie had several climaxes to it.
It did, and they all occurred right at about every 30 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, one thing that, like, as we're talking about this, I'm realizing that people who are listening who haven't watched this may not really infer is that let's talk about the look and feel and aesthetic technique and editing of this film. Maybe should have even started with that, because it is remarkable, even as far as the many films we've reviewed for this show. I think this is, like, in a way, the most psychedelic film we've ever watched. What did everyone think about the visual effects and things like that in this movie?
Whatever you're picturing in your head right now when you hear us describe this movie, it is nothing what this movie looks like. This is like 85% green screen, 15% like actually shot on location, and the two are intercut. I don't want to say like fluidly, but like with so much frequency that it's pretty impressive that they're able to like get tiny little moments shot on green screen to like fill this movie, like patch together a movie.
And Jesus' hair is always down and it's always a little bit wet.
Yes.
Yeah.
And his face is always a little bit sweaty too. So
His
good
eyes
touch.
are always watering. He always looks like he's on the verge of tears.
A very wet man. But yeah, no, it's like I agree with you, Julian. That it was almost remarkable the patchwork quality of this film. Like it I wouldn't say that it worked, but like it seems like he had to do a lot of work.
Yes.
To make this happen. And so it was almost remarkable, like the amount of effort that was clearly put in, as opposed to like the total failure of concept, you know?
I want to note that no video editor is mentioned in the IMDb credits.
Whoa.
Which either means he went through a lot or he just did it himself.
I mean, hey, if this is a really old guy doing it, then, God bless, I suppose. Yeah, I would compare, like, the first thing that I thought of when this movie started, I was like, Christian natural born killers. Like, that was the first, like, secular, like, point of reference I could think to describe the aesthetic of this film, because it had the, like, the acid trails, like, you know, when you're on like in the hallucinogen trip and like someone waves a hand in front of your face and you can see the trails. Like even just like normal motion had that. Like even just like two characters sitting at a kitchen table were animated as if you were on peyote or something. It was very strange.
A lot of it looked like an FMV game as well.
Yeah. The like completely green screen scenes felt a lot like Phantasmagoria. Or there's one with Dennis Hopper called Hell that is looks very much like this. But the depiction of hell in this movie was really surreal in a way that I've never quite seen, of like a velvet painting cave.
I guarantee you, I guarantee you there is one piece of outdated software that explains to you the entirety of this of the look of this film and its special effects.
Bunch of preloaded backgrounds. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, the Satan looked like the guy from Power Rangers, didn't he? The like floating head that tells them what to do. And he had a very similar demeanor too, of just commanding people. It looked like a really like a much more sparse version of hell from the movie Spawn.
Oh, what a great hell that is.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to do an episode just about the hell in Spawn one day. But the movie it reminded me the most of is Despiser, which I just saw recently and I love. This movie looks to me like somebody who had never worked on movies at all saw Despiser and was like, I'm starting to work on a movie right now.
I'm not familiar. What's the context of that one?
I'm not sure how or why it got made, but it is also pretty much all green screen, and the guy who made it just totally goes for it with like constant movement and zooming in and zooming out, and just is assuming the things that are happening in front of you that are really obviously animated, because this is in 2003 too, for like no budget. It's just assuming that you're going with it, and that really works for it. That one was, I'd say, a little more professionally made, but the whole thing takes place in purgatory and they're like outrunning Satan's demons the entire time in it, but like in a car. Somehow he brings his car in from real earth to purgatory. He like jumps over a bridge and then goes through this hole in the river that takes him into purgatory. It's very strange, but fantastic movie.
So was this movie or show actually made for a channel? Did somebody put together multiple episodes and try to sell it to a network? Is there any indication of this? Like, how did it get this far?
I couldn't find any information on that, but I feel like the case for most of these is that it's like created entirely on spec, and they like do all this work and then realize that, oh yeah, I don't actually know anybody in the industry. So maybe they sit on it for a few years waiting for like maybe someday I'll like meet someone who I can be like, hey, oh yeah, I have a show. And then that moment never comes and they say, well, I guess I'll just release the whole thing on YouTube now.
Yeah, I feel like it's very that auteur mindset of like, you know, the idea is so amazing and the amount of work that I put into this is going to be so advanced and so amazing that it's just natural that when I'm done, this will be a highly sought after and marketable product. So yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and make the TV show.
And we have this state-of-the-art software.
Yeah.
Right.
And we have God on our side. What else do you need?
Right.
True.
Right. This might be the Christian television show that smashes through. We've done a couple on the pod that people have had similar mindsets. I'm thinking of Pastor Greg is a big one, although he got a little closer than most, Pastor Greg. But Miracle Man, I don't really see much of a future for it. But you know, the more we're talking about this, I'm seeing just like how non-linear of a structure this film is. And I think a helpful way to really round out our discussion of it is like, can we just like talk about our just favorite moments or favorite parts in general? Because I think that this is a movie that's very imagistic. Like it's more about the moments than the thing taken as a whole.
I like the part where Jesus is like giving a sermon to a small group of people at church, I guess. And he's like blowing their minds with this Jesus knowledge, since this is the first time they've seen Jesus. And there's a Bible verse pasted behind him, 2 Corinthians 3:17, which I found very confusing because in this world, does the New Testament already exist?
Right.
Yeah, I kind of found his that whole scene where he was playing the faith healer in front of a crowd of people. That really felt tasteless to me because he was doing it like a real world fraud.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, this movie was extremely inconsistent in whether or not like what Jesus is supposed to be doing and like whether or not people know that he's Jesus, or that if like there has ever been a Jesus on earth before this moment, or even if like Christianity is the predominant religion in America in this film. It was very strange.
Well, and he seemed to be dating a woman too.
Yeah. Well, that was part of the devil. They said the devil said that he was pissed off because he friend zoned the girl. And like one of his demons was like, we might have been talking over, but one of the demons was like, I don't know what to do. He went on dinner with her and he hasn't talked to her since.
Talk to me. He's not biting. The girl is just another of his friends. He had dinner with her and they haven't seen each other since.
Well, you know, that woman he was dating in the very beginning, she even said something to it where she was like, they say you're some kind of prophet, that you can see the future. And he just is like, yeah. Like, I don't even know if he says anything. He just looks ahead with his like classic, like vacant kind of all knowing.
Well, you have to figure too that those demons had been around since the dawn of time, and they're nefarious and they're cunning. And yet the best they could do is send an old man in a robe over to say, you know, you want to bang her. You know you have physical needs.
Don't you think your father's going a little too far? No women? I mean, you have physical needs like any god. Didn't God say it's not good for a man to be alone?
Come back to me when it's a hand job.
Yeah, let's see, other favorite parts. I mean, we should talk about the the Lazarus moment in the film, which was like the emotional climax of the third act, or as we now know, maybe the third episode of this TV show that was turned into a film. But the Lazarus story in this was like very bewildering because he has a friend in the film whose name is Les, L-E-S, although at times in the film they sort of pronounce that like Laz. At one point in the film, he's like driving to a ball game with, I think, his sister, which the ball game is set up in this like really bizarre way where she's like, remember to bring the right tickets this time. Like, we're not going to the movie theater. We're going to a ball game. They start driving, like, pow, the car just gets smashed into immediately. Very classic Christian movie trope, of course, the car crash. But Jesus hears the news on the phone, which he makes his friend answer, which is also very, very confusing. And his friend is like, you got to go there now. And Jesus is like, no, I'll go there in 3 days. And his friend is like, what? This is an emergency. Like, you have to go now. And Jesus is like, no, I'll be there in 3 days.
It's your buddy Les. He's in critical condition.
I know. I'll get back to them.
You'll get back to him? What do you mean you'll get back to him? This is an emergency. You need to fly home now.
I'll fly home Monday.
Monday? Monday is 2 days from now.
It's implied that he flew across the country, or like flew some great distance to watch the big game with his friend who we have never seen before this scene.
Right.
And he makes that friend answer the phone call to receive the news that his friend is in the hospital after a car crash. And this is all after a scene like 5 or 10 minutes earlier where somebody's like, oh, yeah, you're not watching the big game, Jesus? And he's like, no, I have more important things to do. And then he goes and watches. Yeah. He just lied. He just didn't want to watch the football game with that guy. And he got so wrapped up in that lie that he took a plane ride.
But I really love the part where he was comforting Lazarus's wife or girlfriend. Because he just looked like 2 days ago his mood was bewilderment, but he had been bored ever since.
Yeah,
and then to comfort her, he just kind of said, "Well, you'll understand later."
Just wait.
Oh yeah, and then it cut to that aside where his girlfriend is like crying, standing by this like beautiful lake with ducks. And did you guys hear this? I swear to God, she says like, they're gonna put me in an orphanage and I'll be abused and then I'll be shipped around the world.
So I think she was talking about her childhood and where she came from.
Okay,
because she had a pretty thick accent, and I think it was implied that she. Like that was where she came from, and then like she found this comfort. But it was very confusing because she was blaming JC for this freak car accident, and the only reason she was blaming him for anything was just because he like wasn't there when it happened.
Oh yeah, they're really trying to shoehorn in the thing about, because that happens in the Bible too, where Jesus wasn't there. When Lazarus was really sick. Sure. Before Lazarus got in the car accident in the Bible.
Right. Well, no, it was just funny because he was trying to do this modern retelling, so he had to very awkwardly like change the situation to fit the Bible story, as in having Jesus just choose not to go there for 3 days, like Jesus just being like, nah, I'll get back to him.
He was days. Watching
and
the
playoffs.
His
friend's like, what? yeah.
Well, they build up the resurrection so much that just the suspense doesn't work because you know exactly what's supposed to happen. So it finally gets there and you're like, so what else?
Right. Here's just looking through notes of some of my favorite quotes from the movie. Here's something I wanted your opinion on, Lucian. There's a point in the film where JC is talking to the devil, tempting him. I think it's in the very the very infamous Vegas scene, right after the old man says to him, "I'll put your face on the cover of every magazine."
I can put your face on every major magazine on this planet in no time.
Then Jesus says to him, or JC says to him, you'd have, to the devil he's of course talking to, he says, you'd have no control over this world if my father hadn't allowed it. Which I think sort of goes back maybe to something we were talking about in the beginning of this conversation, but this is to say, like, how powerful is the devil? Like, how, like, to what extent is God allowing the devil to act on earth? And how is that power balance, like, able to keep going within the context of this film?
Or how is God's evil any less than Satan's for making all that happen? Like,
right.
The whole idea is really, I think, convoluted apologetics, and it was bizarre because I don't know how many people actually subscribe to that belief system as portrayed in this film.
Yeah, I mean, it may have been just as much as like another example of a Christian filmmaker trying to retell the Bible, and in doing so, just hammering out just so much nuance and filtering it through this like already pretty biased, like American Protestant evangelical type of way of looking at Christianity. And then just, you know, what spits out of this machine is this like incomprehensible thing. I mean, it may have been just as simple as that, but I found that to be a really interesting quote in the context of the battle between Jesus and the devil in this film. What else? Any other favorite parts?
I really liked when Laz's roommate, whoever she was, went to the hospital, and the nurse was like, "Oh yeah, he was doing fine, but there's been a change, and he's dead now."
Oh, yeah. We'll have to pipe in that whole part.
Like it didn't quite fit in their schedule.
How's my brother?
There's been a change. You know, we had him stabilized, but about 15 minutes ago, his heart started to fibrillate. He's losing blood pressure.
But Jesus, all of a sudden, all in one scene, all of a sudden had a black friend who told him he wanted him to give him 5.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
that was so funny. He said, "No fist bumps here. We're high-fiving."
Yeah, Jesus, who has not been fist bumping this whole movie. That's the only way that would make any kind of sense or mean anything at all.
But that guy was nobody too. He was the sudden black friend.
Yeah.
He was clearly not based on any biblical character. It was just the guy he watched the big game with.
Right.
Yeah, he was also like at least like 30 or 40 years older than JC. So who knows what their relationship was, but it was just, that was just the guy he goes to watch. It's his secret sports friend.
Yeah. I think that was that classic like amateur filmmaker thing of like, I'm going to try to inject some like relationship between the characters in here to like make this film more realistic, but it actually just made it seem more like it was made by aliens. Another great example of that, Lucian, you pointed out an early thing in the film that almost seemed like they were going to set up a Judas type character, but they meet at the airport, which is literally like a green screen. It's like them sitting at 2 chairs while there's like planes taking off in the background.
And his hand is glitching out on the green screen too.
Yeah. But there's a part where he gives Jesus this big soda cup, and he's like, "I got your favorite, 4 flavors in 1, suicide." Which is like, is there any cultural basis for that? Like, has anyone thought or said that before Ted Jordan?
You know what's really weird is this is several years after this, but I had never heard it called a suicide before until I watched Barb and Star go to Vista Del Mar, which just came out this year.
Wait, you never heard of what called a suicide? Because I still don't get what they were talking about. And then if I remember,
it's like
correctly,
when you go to the drink machine and at like a movie theater or like a Taco Bell or something, and you put like a little bit of every selection in your cup.
That's called the suicide.
Yeah,
is apparently called a suicide.
But in this movie, which wasn't supposed to be funny, the guy comes up with this cup and says 4 flavors suicide or whatever. Yeah. And it looks like Jesus isn't going to touch this and does not appreciate this man telling him that he would do something in such a scofflaw fashion is mix 4 flavors in one.
Right.
And then the guy said to him, just kidding, it's iced tea. And then Jesus starts drinking it, right? I mean, did that not happen?
Yeah, it was.
That's exactly how it happened.
He's like, I don't do that anymore, man. Like, I don't touch that stuff. I'm sober now. Like, I'm off the suicide. You know.
He was like, this is a very beverage focused portrayal of Jesus with the suicide, the iced tea, the
McCafes.
Yeah, there's like a shot. There's one shot where it holds on him drinking a cup of coffee for like 5 seconds longer than it needs to before just going to the next scene. Like, there's no reason why they couldn't have just ended the scene before he took a drink of the cup of coffee.
No, he faded away in that, remember? Because you were like, did he drink an invisible potion?
Oh, yeah. Because it's green screen, he like fades away before the rest of the shot goes out.
There was another shot that lasted way too long. It was it was Lazarus's wife or girlfriend crying. I remember that.
Oh, yeah. That was a good one. Yeah, but he drinks this. He has this cup of coffee, and then in literally the very next scene, we see him making coffee out of a Keurig. So this guy is just like, that's why he's so wet all the time, because he's just got so much like liquid retention.
Yeah, my man hydrated.
But if what's really meant by the suicide is just mixing flavors in one cup like that, this just kind of elevates that scene to one of the most ludicrous things I've ever seen in one of these movies at all. Because I did not understand what that was supposed to mean at the time. And now, given that context, I think, I can't fucking believe they put that scene in there.
I forgot that he said, like, just kidding, it's just iced tea.
Yeah.
Until you said that just now, and now, I agree that this is like...
Only then would he drink it.
Such a, like, every once in a while you just encounter a movie that is written by somebody who is like their life was just the parable of the cave, and they just came out and wrote a movie and have no idea how humans interact or talk, and it's truly like remarkable.
Yeah, the same mind that had Satan saying to his minions, like, I'm gonna demote you back 400 years if you can't get this right. It's just like, it was this myopic view of spirituality where everything was run like a small business, or because like that was just the only way this person could picture that cosmology. You know, a very strange view of the doings of humans.
Yeah, and the devil calls Jesus and God knuckleheads.
I wish I had taken notes on some of the really inarticulate things Satan said, but it was just, it wasn't even like being inarticulate as a type of character. It was just bad writing, kind of inarticulate.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah? What about the 17 demons he threw on that maniac who stopped by his building last week? I don't mind his little magic tricks, but when he starts commanding my troops around, I've got a problem, you hear?
And he was played by an 80-year-old man who was like the demeanor of like the like editor at a newspaper in the 1940s who like is yelling at the like young reporter to get a story on his desk by 5 o'clock.
Well, I mean, I did take notes on this film, but there was honestly so many insane dialogue moments that there's parts in my notes, like I know there's one where I wrote down like 24 minutes and 11 seconds and then the hyphen, can't remember why I wrote this number, because like I was trying to write down what I saw, but then by the time I even started to type the sentence, like 3 other insane things had happened and I got completely distracted. This was, listeners, if you have time to check this out, this film is available in full on YouTube. I highly recommend it because like this is an audiovisual delight. It is a feast for the senses.
You've seen nothing like this, I promise.
Truly. We are practiced watchers of this genre. We are all here masters of spiritual warfare in our own way, but we were not prepared for the onslaught of Miracle Man.
You ever see like European pop music videos from like the 80s?
All the time. That's my favorite.
Well,
I'm a
yeah.
big Euro
this
fan.
is kind of the overuse of the green screen and things like that gives it that kind of quality, that kind of campy surrealism.
That's true. Yeah. Now that you've mentioned that, I remember there's this disco video I like where it's a woman dancing and she's dancing in front of a green screen of a different angle of the same performance where she's dancing, but like timed differently. It's just like it creates this very odd like latency effect. And that type of visual is sort of like this movie. It's like things are moving that shouldn't be moving. It's very bizarre.
Oh yeah, that wedding that he was at where he changed the water into wine. It was like the tables that were with people sitting at them that were put in were shifting about weird.
Yeah,
it was like wavy.
Everything is moving slightly out of sync.
It was very hallucinogenic in that way. You really couldn't trust what you were looking at. It felt like anything might just like move or disappear at a moment's notice. It was a very unsettling experience.
Yeah, I think you got to be in the right frame of mind for this one, though.
Oh, yeah.
That's all I can say.
I think that concludes our discussion of the 2013 psychedelic thriller Miracle Man. What do we think of this movie, guys? Let's give this the official Boys Bible Study rating.
This movie was awesome. I've never seen anything like it. Really loved it. I'm going to have to give this a perfect score. One set of janitor's keys to the wine closet. What's that? He doesn't have them anymore? What are we going to do? Oh my God, Jesus is turning the water into wine. There's going to be a party after all. Wow, amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Freeze and zoom in on the one waitress's face with her like jaw on the floor.
I would say that this film was really remarkable. You know, it was as psychedelic as Natural Born Killers, or you know, it had Kubrickian qualities to it. It had this like, you know, very ambitious psychedelica, but at the same time, it was very intimate, clearly an auteur piece, you know, clearly someone completely in charge of his own vision, however low budget it might be. I'm going to have to give this film a perfect score, 4 out of 4 soda flavors in one cup. That's right, The Suicide. I would say this is a perfect film.
What more can be said? Yeah, what more can be said about this movie than we've already said? I'll give it a perfect score. I'm going to give it a 400-year promotion.
Well, I got to say, if you're into this kind of film, then this is the only film that will do it.
Yeah.
So whatever this film is, it's everything that kind of film should be. So I give it the highest rating of 66 out of 6.
Yes.
I would say if you're into this movie, you're probably Ted Jordan.
Yeah, well, I'm really glad that we all had this experience of watching Miracle Man together. And Lucian, we're so grateful that you joined us for this. Thank you.
My pleasure. Anytime.
Yeah, well, thanks. And before we go, where can people find you in your work? And is there anything going on right now that you'd like people to know about? Oh, also, please remind how we can participate in your movie nights, if that's a possibility, because I know our listeners would be into something like that.
Yeah, I tend to update Twitter more than anything else. I really have a difficult time bringing myself to even look at Facebook anymore. But I often update there about movie nights and other things I'm doing. So check it out, follow there, or subscribe to my Patreon if you want, or don't. The content's free anyways, but check it out one way or the other. And check out the Satanic Temple at thesatanictemple.com.
Very nice. Yeah. Wait, what's the site for the movie stuff?
Oh, we have the satanictemple.tv as well. That's where our streaming platform is.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I would definitely recommend any Boys Bible Study listener who likes to watch our monthly live streams. This seems like a really fun place to hang out and watch films with a different kind of company. Also, before we go, we wanted to shout out our friend Lenny Flatley. He does a great pod called Failed State Update that we've appeared on, and Lenny was the one who helped us connect with Lucian. So definitely check out Lenny's work. He's a really fantastic podcaster and journalist. On the Boys Bible Study side of things, we always like to say, if you enjoy our free episodes, we invite you to check out our Patreon, which is patreon.com/boysbiblestudy. If you subscribe at the $5 tier or higher, you get access to our 2 or more extra bonus episodes that we do every month. Also, our entire back catalog of bonus episodes will be yours to stream. We also would like to recognize our very generous patrons at the $20 tier, our patron saints. Shout outs to Jeff, Nicole, Russell, and Marissa. Thank you so much. Our outro theme is Oh My God by pop singer Mary. Please check out her work. Actually, she has a new song out right now. Check out I Need You by Mary on Bandcamp and Spotify. On behalf of myself, Ash, my co-hosts Scott and Julian, our very special guest today, Lucian Greaves, we would like to say, peace be with you.
And with you.
Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. I feel your love in me, it's coming from within. Oh my God, my devotion is so unwavering. Divine emotions when you enter me. Every day you take